And the summer's here soon. So you guys did such a great job. Like I tell you every week, I brag about you all the time, how amazing you did going from, you know, on a Friday to being in school to all of a sudden that next week you were gearing up to do remote instruction, and just the amazing job that you guys have done. So last week, before we get started, last week I told you, we talked a lot about how the voices need to be heard, right, of the educators in New Hampshire on how we were going to get back to school, when we were going to go back, what you needed to be able to be safe to go back. There's a survey that's gone out from the DOE, the New Hampshire DOE. If you have not seen it, it will be up in the chat box tonight. It's really crucial that you fill out this survey. I told you about the task force and the work group that I was on last week, and it's a scam. It really is. It's ridiculous. The survey is so biased, and it was written before we had a chance to do anything. So it's really, really vital and crucial that you and your members fill out this survey to get your opinions out there. I had amazing feedback last week. We're going to use it and start tweeting out words that people gave us about how they needed to feel safe and what their concerns were before we could go out. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, you can start. And NEA New Hampshire, actually, it's going to come out for NEA New Hampshire, sorry, but I'll like them all. But we really need to get our opinion out there because the concern is real. The bias of the survey is real, and the fact that our Commissioner of Education wants to get rid of public education is real. You can fill it out more than once if you fill it out as a parent and a teacher. If you fill it out as a parent, you can only focus on one child, I think, but if you can go back in if you fill out a different group. So that's that. So we have with us tonight, I do want to say before we start, this is being recorded. Don't forget, we do record all the sessions and we put all the audio up on the website. And then what I do is I look at all the chat questions, and if there's things to get back to people, we will. Otherwise, the chat box is there for you to put things out. Let us know what you're thinking, how you're feeling. And we have a really special guest tonight. I always try to get people in that I think you're going to enjoy hearing from. And tonight we are lucky enough to have the NEA Vice President, Becky Pringle, with us. She is an Eagles fan, so we're going to let that go. You know I had to get that in, Becky. And that's okay. We'll no. We'll excuse it for tonight. But last week I was I'm part of a think tank that NEA put together, and I was asked to be on, and Becky's leading this think tank. And it's about going back to school and what can we do to get back to school safely. But two of the questions that they posed to us last week I thought were really, really interesting. And that's what we posed out to you all this week. And so just to recap, it's what do we have to do to be better on the other side of COVID-19 than before it started? And what should be our role in shifting our usual choices and decision-making to address racial, social, and economic justice during conversations about rebuilding and recovery? And these are huge. We have a great opportunity to remake education the way we want it. And like I said last week, we remake education every day in the classroom. You're reinventing things every single day. This is nothing new to us. So let's take this opportunity that we have and let's make it the best it can be for everybody. Let's get those inequalities to become equalities. And let's make sure that everybody, no matter zip code, no matter road they live on, state they live in, town they live in, rural, suburban, whatever, let's make sure that everybody's getting the education they deserve, because we have some of the best educators in the country on this call and in New Hampshire, and I know that we can do it. So I'll turn it over to Becky to say a little bit, and then we can get on with questions, chats, whatever. Thanks, Becky.
Yay. So as you are thinking about those questions, let me just take this opportunity to pick up where Megan started, and that was just to say thank you. I just got off the phone, I think about 20 minutes ago, with a reporter from ABC. And they wanted to talk about the reopening of schools and were our teachers and other educators feeling pressure, anxiety, fear. And I said, yep, all of those things. Absolutely, all of those things. I said, but in places where you have elected and appointed officials who are partnering with our union, with our educators in meaningful and deep ways and have been doing that, their level of anxiety is not as high because they know that they are at the table. No, they're not just at the table. They're actually in positions of power and authority. They are making educational decisions that are sound and safe for their students and for the educators who have dedicated their lives to educating America's students. And so we talked a lot about that. And I have to say, NEA New Hampshire, whenever I get the opportunity to talk about you, I get a little full because, 2 weeks ago, what was it, 2 weeks ago, we celebrated Teacher Appreciation Week. And I broadened that to say Educator Appreciation Week. And because as a teacher of over 30, none of your business years, I know I could not have done the job I love without all of the other educators, the counselors and bus drivers and nurses and secretaries and librarians, all of them. But when I talk about you, and this has always been true, you inspire me. I've been there to New Hampshire. And I think the last time was the rally, for students. But every time I'm with you, I'm so inspired. So I always get a chance to talk about you. But in this moment, what you are doing is unbelievable. It's just unbelievable that you are stepping up. You're continuing to fill the gaps that Megan talked about. You're taking care of your own families. You're tutoring parents while you're trying to find kids that have disappeared. You're doing all of these things. And I was talking about that with the reporter. And I have to tell you, this is that moment where everyone is, shaking their head and agreeing with me that our educators all over this country are phenomenal, and everyone knows it. They're seeing that firsthand. And so as Megan talked about the challenges you're facing there with your commissioner of education, is that what he's called? Trying to follow in the footsteps of Betsy DeVos, baking in those inequities. That you have,
commissioner's only one name.
Just what you have so many people now. We have so many people now who are looking to us for guidance and leadership, who are working with us, are ready to stand beside us, 6 feet apart, of course. But in making sure that our students get what they need when they need it. So I have to tell you, when we've been working with our affiliates and putting out guidance on reopening schools and all of that, and we knew that in this moment, even though we had to prepare for reopening schools, that we needed to think about it not only from a place that we were planning from our current reality, because we know our current reality as it now exists does not meet the needs of all of our students. And so we have to be thinking about right now the decisions we make to try to set up the processes, systems, and structures, put that in place, change and transform some of those systems that are impacting our students' ability to learn. And we have to do that now so that as we make decisions right now, we are actually building that bridge between this current reality we're in and that desired future state. And I have to tell you, your wonderful, fabulous, phenomenal president, as soon as President Lilly said, we're putting together a think tank, she raised her hand. And what you don't know is that when Megan raised her hand, she was actually raising all of your hands. And that's what this is about tonight, is one of the things I said to them. I have the wonderful opportunity and privilege to chair this think tank. And one of the things I said to them is that Lilly assembled these incredible minds together to think about this, to think about our future and, excuse me, and how we're going to create it together. And what I said to folks like your president is, so I need all of your good minds, that the people you are interacting with, I need them in this conversation too. And so Megan, right away, within a couple of days, she said, well, I have Megan Talks. Why don't we have leaders in New Hampshire talk to you so that when we go back to the think tank, no pressure, NEA New Hampshire, but all of the things that your good ideas and concerns that you're going to raise with us tonight, we're going to go back and share and put that in the mix of things we're thinking about, so that it can inform our decisions, our thoughts, strategies that we are thinking about. And so that's why we're here tonight. And I'll end where I started, just saying thank you for all that you're doing. and all that I know we'll do tonight. So I'll turn it back over to you, Madam President.
Thank you. So I can open it up. I can't see every single screen, but just kind of pop up if you have any questions or comments or concerns or thoughts on what we can do maybe that we haven't been doing, anything about any of the inequalities that have been happening and how we can make things more equal. This is our chance. Like Becky said, we are going to bring all this back. I think there's a meeting next week and she's going to get all this information tomorrow too. So this is our time, guys. We have, a perfect audience to hear what we want to do and how we want to do it. So I'm going to open it up to you guys. Just unmute and speak. Otherwise, you get to hear me talk more.
You can also click the raise your hand button and I can unmute.
George doesn't want me to talk. And I can only see one screen at a time. George, can you see the other ones?
Yes, I can. And if anybody clicks raise their hand, I can unmute them, or if they unmute, we'll see it and they can ask a question.
Okay, so we got, let's see, Lisa, went into my building today to clean out student lockers. Wearing a mask for just an hour is extremely uncomfortable. Yeah, how would you do it every day? I know. I went to the doctor's today and just wearing it in, sitting at registration, I was sweating all underneath. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, how would you teach in this? Especially, that was in an air-conditioned office. None of our, well, very few of our schools have air conditioning unless you're in the actual office. So yeah, I mean, just looking at the safety concerns, how are you going to keep them distant? How are you going to keep them separate, wearing the masks? How are you going to keep kids to keep the masks on? This is, something that's been happening everywhere. Lisa, this is a concern that's been coming up. Who's going to actually pay for all that too, is the other question. Cindy, great question. How can you make sure everyone, oh, whoa, now they're all coming in. Hold on. I gotta go back up. Access to sufficient broadband to take classes. I'm gonna pipe in a little bit and then I'll see if Becky wants to add anything to this. So I was on a call last week with Senator Shaheen's office and she's sponsoring a bill that's, I think, gonna be about $4 billion to get some better broadband access and things like that from the US government. So in New Hampshire, just to fill Becky in a little bit, New Hampshire, we're mostly rural. We have a few suburban, if you want to talk about that, or urban districts, but for the most part, our cities, we don't have a lot of cities. Our third largest city, Concord, is 40,000, give or take. So we have a lot of places that, don't have this. There's actually, I know 2 instances. One, I had a teacher that emailed and said she was actually going to the local library and sitting next to the library because it was the closest hotspot, and she sat in her car and did all her work while she was doing remote instruction because she didn't have it. Do you have anything else from national that you know about? I know it might be coming, but we need to make sure there's access to this. This is huge. Absolutely.
And I know, Megan, that you've been putting out the information. We did a big push last week on the HEROES Act, where we fought really hard. We heard most of what I'm seeing typed in right now as we talk to members all over the country. And so as we talk to members of Congress, we use these very specific examples of this is an issue that will require a solution that costs money. And not only do we have to have a dedicated stream to address things like hotspots, we also have to make sure that our state governments have the resources they need as we all just deal with the reality of the recession that is hitting us right now. And we all know what gets cut first. We still haven't, we have not yet recovered from the 2008 recession in education. Other sectors have, but education has not. And so what we are asking you to do, if you've not already done it, is contact your members of Congress. We will be pushing hard on this, but the more examples, so this is a really good example of where Megan's gonna give me this, so I have it in front of me, and I can say one of our members from New Hampshire talked about this or talked about that. So we have real examples. These are real life examples that we have to address when we go back to school. Yeah, but we need the resources to do it. We can't not have those resources.
Right. We're very lucky in New Hampshire that we have amazing delegation in DC. Our congressmen and senators are totally behind public education. They vote with us in everything. And I know that they're going to be fighting the best they can. So, but getting those letters in, getting those signatures to know that people still are caring about this. Something else that came up last week, and it just came up again tonight, how will wearing a mask work with a student who's hearing impaired? Will that be an issue? Yeah, it's going to be a huge issue. I wish, Shannon, that I had an answer for you. I think these are things that, you know, it shows the disconnect between our Commissioner of Education and the real world of public education, because that has never once come up in anything that I've ever heard him speak about. And so that's something I do have on the radar, and it is something that we're going to be putting out as a concern, because that's enormous. You can't read lips with a mask on. You can't see facial expressions with a mask on. You can't do any of that. Today,
Megan, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go on. Oh, no, I was going to move to something else. So you.
No, well, actually, I was going to connect what you just said to some of these other questions, like the IEPs and what they call for, as well as the one about the hearing impaired. And there was another one. It's popping up, but one of the things that we have been sharing with our affiliates is, as they go to the table, for those who have folks who are listening to them, that one of the things that we want them to explore with the collaborative group that we hope you have in place, talking about these things, that exploring the idea of hybrid models. So we know we can't go back to school and say, okay, now we're all back to school and we're all going to social distance and we're all going to wear masks and we're all going to do that. We can't design it that way. We just can't. And so we have to think about where there might be hybrid models. So it may be a hybrid model. For example, one idea that surfaced from one of our special ed teachers was that if their special needs student could not make sure that they were in a safe environment, or the educator was in a safe environment, that maybe they can set up within the school a remote instruction kind of a space where for part of the day they do it that way, and then for part of the day where they can interact with their masks on in a safe way, so they're not completely isolated. So that was a hybrid. We had heard about the hybrid models where maybe for half of the day they might do remote learning, for half of the day they come to school, to deal with class sizes and space and all of those things. But I hadn't heard of that idea yet. Those are the kinds of things that our educators are coming up with and need to be on the table, because we need to be thinking about how we create different spaces now in our schools themselves that might accommodate a hybrid model that our educators can think of, because our educators are so incredibly creative. And we do want to make sure that with our special needs students, our students with special needs, that they are allowed to participate, at the highest level they can and still be safe.
Yep. So I know Kurt had his hand up, and I'm going to get you in one quick second. There was an executive order, 48, I think. I feel like the governor's signing executive orders every day now, that had to do with special education and ESY today that I heard about. I did send an email over to Jane Bergeron, who was on with us 2 weeks ago, the executive director of the New Hampshire Special Education Administrators Association. So I'm waiting to hear back from her. So whoever wrote the question, I will go back and check that out for you in the chat box and make sure I find out some more about it. I just heard about it today. Kurt, what's your question?
Hi, yeah. First off, just thanks for doing these. Thanks for the regular communication. I think it's a change in the right direction. I'm just wondering, with all of the surveys out right now, it seems wonderfully democratic, and we're all of a sudden very concerned about what everybody thinks. But I can see already people with agendas claiming that the data says. I'm just wondering what we're doing to get out in front of that, what we're doing to publish teacher voices now before the story gets built around us.
That is a great question. So we have a whole communications plan set up. Like I said last week, or if I didn't say it, I truly believe this. The only reason he put me on this work group was to say that NEA New Hampshire was part of this. They don't want to listen to us. They don't want, our opinion, because they know it's going to clash with theirs. So we have the emails that I got in last week with all the safety concerns. Those are getting put out to, I think, the media. They're definitely getting put out on social media coming from the people. Names aren't going to be mentioned. It'll be initials and and job description. So that's one way. When Ed Blue was first appointed as commissioner, we had a little thing called Ed Blue, what do you do? Because I didn't think he really did anything for our public education. And so we tweeted out things that we did every day as educators. And so then what we did is we took them all, I had 400 responses, and we sent them over to the Department of Education. So all these responses will be blacked out with names, but they're gonna be sent to the State Board of Education, and they're gonna be sent to the commissioner and to the governor. I don't know if George knows that I thought about that yet, but those are all gonna be sent out so that they know that the voice is actually out there, because you're completely right. This survey was already written by the time the task force got together. You can't tell me this was done after input that had nothing to do with it. So we're going to be getting out there. I did run into Adam Sexton at the grocery store the other day, and he did talk about how I felt about the task force, and I told him it was ridiculous. It was a big sham. They didn't really want us on there. They were just putting us on for political reasons. And so he talked about in June, me going on close up with him to really talk about it. So we're getting it out there that, yes, I'm on the work group, but really it has nothing to do with, they don't want our opinion. So I have no problem, you know, being that 800-pound gorilla in the media saying that they're not listening to us. And this is what my members are actually saying. The people who know what it's like to be online trying to teach their own kids and their other kids. We have, George is putting up op-ed pieces, earned media. So we're trying to get out every possible thing that we can in every medium that we can so that people hear us. And if you'd like to be part of that, let me know and we can definitely get you out there.
And that was Kurt, right?
Yes.
Kurt, thank you. Thank you for that question. So a couple of things I want to add to what Megan said. So what she just said, we're doing that at the national level as well. A couple of things. We did a survey ourselves, and so we pushed that out, and that was about 3 weeks ago. And we're in the process of doing another. So we are actually working to control that narrative and use surveys that are actually grounded in research. And we're talking with educators and with parents too. We're serving parents too. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we are working really closely with our partners in the civil rights communities, our partners in the special needs communities, our partners in the economic justice communities, as well as our partners in the racial and social justice communities. So we're working with all of them, and we're not only sharing information, we're working with them on their teletown halls, and they're coming on ours, so that we are speaking with one message. And we're using them as third-party validators, because you know they always want to say, well, that's just you. You know, that's just you, NEA New Hampshire. We don't believe you. But when we have our partners doing it, it validates the fact that Betsy DeVos is terrible and she has an agenda, and we know what that is. And so, so we're doing that. And then a last thing I'm going to say, Kurt, is that I'm going to ask you. So I know that George just typed information in the chat box, and we'll send some more information, current information to Megan. But you know, you guys, we know that educators, people listen to you. You are a trusted voice. And so the more you're using your own social media to influence the people in your circle, that helps us, and we can lift that up and we can amplify it in ways, honestly, that no other organization can do, because they don't have the kind of ties we have. So, you know, it's all, I apologize, Megan, you should have warned them that whenever I come, I always make an ask. So I'm sorry, Kurt, that I've made an ask of you already.
I just volunteered, we're good.
All right. Yay. Good answer.
So it's really interesting. There's two things I wanted to ask about. As I'm reading through all the chat questions, I just wanted to mention, so I told you before, I'm on a call usually weekly with other presidents and just listening what's going on in other states. And we have our communications with each other. Some schools are opening up in June that have been closed. They're trying to open up early. And I'm really going to be interested to hear what the stories are from them, the successes, the failures. I think Texas is one of them that's opening up in June. And I can't remember, there was another state. I want to say Arizona, but I'm not sure. But it'll be interesting to see what they're going through, so we can kind of look at that and see what's worked and what didn't in those. But there was a really interesting question in here from Misty, and I think it was posed to Becky. If it wasn't, I'm going to pose it to Becky. What do you see as the biggest inequalities, and how can we really address some of those right now?
Well, the one that the light is shining on right now are the gaps in access to the internet. This was not new to us at the NEA when we, for years, when we lobbied our members of Congress on the E-rate program, which, by the way, actually, it's an example of something that works. When we fund it, we get more and more students who are connected to the internet. But you know, we're not in that place where our federal leaders think that that's something important for our schools. But we are getting a lot more attention to that. There's just no one who can defend that we're sending students home to do homework, and they don't have access to the internet to do it. And so that is, the light is shining on that gap. But here's the thing. There is not one. What we have been shouting about forever, and now folks actually get it, is that for us in education, it's all of the systems coming together. It's why we call it structural inequities. It's not one system, it's all of them that compound together and exacerbate the issue. So we're talking now, of course, front and center, healthcare, of course. Those students that have access to healthcare or only through schools, of course, they're gonna have, the impact of COVID-19 is gonna be greater on them and their families. Housing insecurity, all of those things, economic security, racial injustices that we've seen forever. Our students living in rural areas, we know those inequities have been existing forever. And so all of those systems, those social systems that we need to work together and provide our students with what they need when they need it, we know that the light is shining on all of them together. And that's one of the things we're trying to do, that we can't only address specifically education. We have to address all of these things, because all of these are contributing to the gaps in learning that our students have. It is helping, I will tell you this, it is helping us with the narrative to move away from what we've been calling forever since No Child Left Behind passed, the achievement gap, to talking about the access and opportunity and resource gaps. And so those are the kinds of things, that's how we're reframing that message, and it is catching on. Like I said, with the reporter today, that's how we reframed it, and that's what we need you to continue to amplify, so that we're talking about all of those systems of inequity that are impacting our students' ability to learn.
So it's interesting you just talked about the gap, because our Commissioner of Education called us gap fillers. That he said specifically teachers in New Hampshire are just gap fillers. All we do is fill in the gaps when students come to school. So that was good. That was fun. You know, we're hearing about different groups and how we're going to help them in the fall. And there's one group that I think we keep leaving out, and I know we don't do it intentionally, and it only came to light because I had a personal experience with it this year. The kind of accelerated and gifted group. You know, the AP exams were kind of a debacle for a lot of people. And I'm only saying this, he's only 9, but I'm going to be a proud mama for a minute. But my 9-year-old finished, in 3rd grade, he finished Lexia, which is the reading program they use in Concord. And so you're not supposed to finish it until the end of 4th grade, and then you move on to a new reading program in 5th grade. So our policy in Concord is he has to redo the whole program next year. And I thought, well, this is absolutely ridiculous that he has to now go back and redo Lexia when he should. Yeah, exactly, Lisa. My face was worse than that. Is why does he have to go redo this if he's shown that he was already doing this? Because he was doing 4th grade math in 3rd grade. That was not for my genes, trust me. But he was doing 4th grade math in 3rd grade, and he apparently has to redo this. So we're going to have a little scuffle about this with the principal. But I think that's another group that we need to look at as we're kind of looking post COVID-19. What are we doing for those kids as well? Because for a lot of those kids, this was, I can do the work, it's done, it's over, I'm not really being challenged. So, you know, we're trying to find other stuff for them to do. But I think if we can, you know, really ramp up those programs as well and kind of get that group involved, I think that's going to be a whole nother thing.
So Megan, I just want to stop you for a minute and just comment on this really speaks to, for me, what you just said. It speaks to the second question about, you know, what should our role be in shifting our usual choices and decision making. to address all of these things. Educational, I'll just say educational justice writ large. And something I'm asking you all to think about a little bit with that, the example that Megan just gave, that, you know, coming out of this, what are we going to be talking about as it relates to focusing learning on the learner and what their needs are, because that also is going to be so much more pronounced on every end of that spectrum, to your point, and every child in between that. So I think it's an opportunity for us as educators, for us as a union, to be at the forefront of that conversation.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how you guys are feeling right now, but I really feel like, especially the longer this goes on, this will have impact for a very long time. And we need to be creating what that looks like right now. And that's not a bad thing, that we're actually looking at those individual learners and what their needs are and how the system is not necessarily meeting them.
Yeah. This is our chance, I see nationally, but I see it also for New Hampshire. This is our Red for Ed movement. However we come out of this is the chance for us to be able to stand on the front line and lead the conversation. Because as we've talked about before, we know that our commissioner, you know, he can say whatever he wants. He can be on the news. He can be on, you know, Twitter, whatever. He doesn't know public education. We are the professionals. You are the ones that are in the classroom, living room, kitchen, wherever it is. You're the ones that are in the schools, and you're the ones that know exactly what you're doing every day. He doesn't. And this is our chance to step up, you know, and, you know, as Kurt was asking, what are we going to do? We need to be out there. We need to be loud. We don't have to be mean about it. We don't have to be, you know, rude or cruel. As I said last week, I'm more than happy to be that spokesperson. I want to be that gorilla. And I think I agreed to wear a gorilla suit to one of the conferences if we have it, to be that 800-pound gorilla. Thank you. Yeah, you remember that, Cindy. But that's what we need to do. We need to be the ones leading. It's a long story. We need to be the ones leading this conversation. And, you know, one of the questions too was, what was something we want to come out of this post-COVID that we didn't have pre-COVID? And when that was asked last week, I was on, when it was asked through Becky in the think tank, I was on with the president from Alaska and a few staff from NEA, and they had these amazing answers. It's just, you know, they had really eloquent answers, and it got to me and they said, you know, what is it? And I said, honestly, we need a new Secretary of Education. We need a new person there. Like, I hate to be so simple about it, but as we say every week, elections matter. And if we don't get someone new in the White House to appoint somebody new, where we have education-friendly people that are going to help us get that person elected, this is only going to get worse. I mean, we can change things here in New Hampshire. We can change things in your local. But truly, honestly, we have a chance to, like Misty just said, embrace that teacher voice, that educator voice, and change things nationally. New Hampshire ranks in the top 4 for education every single year. That's not because of Betsy DeVos. It's not because of who's in the White House. It's not because of the Commissioner of Education or our governor. It's because of you. We need to take this time and really get it out there. This is our chance. Do it by doing what you do every day. We are amazing at what you do. You truly, truly are. As a parent, as an educator myself, I can't say how great you are. But this is what we're doing. We can fight the policy. If you give me the information that we ask you for, let us fight that fight at the state level with some input, with some help. I need you to be out there fighting to let people know what we're doing. Talk about it when we can go back to the dump on Saturdays. Talk about it when you can go out to dinner, out to lunch. Talk about it this summer when you're out there. Yard sales at the pool. You should be so proud to do what you do, and I know you are. But this is our chance. This is our opportunity to make sure that everybody knows what we do. So, any last thoughts? Yes, Kim, we have the Educate and Elevate campaign, and that is going to go full force to let people know we are not going to let you lose your jobs or your health care. I have a list of about 90 different things that paras and other ESP can do every day in the schools. And one of the districts 2 weeks ago, when I asked for some stories, I got some amazing stories, and I still want them. I want people to send me stories of a day in the life. And so I got about, I think, 10 or 15 different stories from ESP in this one local saying, this is what my day looks like. And some people went, you know, hour by hour or whatever. Some people just said, this is what I do. And it was almost like a writing prompt that we give our students in class. And, you know, what is your day like? Those are stories are going to get out too. Those are all getting out to let people know what you're doing. Because as we've said over and over, and I truly, truly believe, you know, education isn't just the teacher in the front of the room. It's the ESP. It's the bus drivers that the first people they see in the morning, they know something's wrong. They're going to call the school and say, listen, so-and-so is not having a good day. I can tell by the way they got on the bus. It's the administrative assistants that they see when they first come into the classroom, the food service workers who are still, and I firmly believe this, just a couple of our districts have hazard pay. They need hazard pay. They're serving the food to everybody in the district. They need hazard pay. And we do have language out there. Don't forget, Goffstown and I think New Boston both have that language. So we have it when you're at the table looking for it. But we need these stories. I need them from everybody so that we have, you know, and as Becky said, we need these real life experiences. Those can get sent to me. I'll put my email in again. They can be sent, you know, on our website. If you just go to the members only, they can be sent, they can be put there. I'll get all of those as well. But we need those stories because they are crucial in letting people know exactly what we do. And you're right. I mean, we fought to make sure that ESP were keeping their paychecks and their health care, even when people went home and some districts said, well, you can't help anyone over the computer. Just like we're fighting for everybody to get all through the Title IV funds, we're fighting for them to get devices, all the students and all the educators. You guys are crucial. I taught for 18 years. I couldn't have done my job without the ESP in the classroom at all. There's no way. We know this. Let's get it out there.
So Megan, can I just add, I don't know how many of your leaders on the line tonight are familiar with NEA's Professional Growth Continuum, our ESP standards.
Yep.
Yeah, they did great. I just wanted to make sure that they knew that we just released a guide about 2 weeks ago, I think, or 3 weeks. Yeah, so our ESP Careers Committee worked on that this year and they just finished it. But it's a guide on how to use the professional growth continuum in each of the 9 job or career families. And so we can provide that information when you report back out so that folks know that they can go up and take a look at it. And that was steeped in exactly what you just said and the question that was answered, that for us, we have to tell that story of how we could not possibly ensure that every student gets what they need without all of our educators. And so demonstrating the value and critical, essential work that our ESP does is absolutely essential to telling this complete story about what we need. And I will also say, and Megan, you know, that when we work with our members of Congress and in terms of the language that was put into the bill that we're trying to get through, that they specifically called out our ESPs as well, in terms of making sure that they had from pay to, you know, what we'll put under the umbrella of respect, that they had the services and access to resources that our teachers did as well.
Yep. And so Jeff's just writing, you know, we need to fight for the Title I teachers. Yes, we do. I mean, they're just as important. So these are all the groups that we're working towards and fighting. So Kim is actually, Becky, Kim O'Neill is on our ESP committee for New Hampshire. And so what they did some really good work this year. We were supposed to have a conference on April 4th or April 6th. It was a Saturday. And that had to be rescheduled, obviously, because we had closed the office and we weren't going places. So what they did was they came up, we have, I think it's a 5-week series that started last Wednesday. They took the topics that we would have had in the ESP conference and they're putting it out as 1-hour workshops for people to take over Zoom. So even though we couldn't come together, we know that the ESP really wanted that time and that instruction. And I know Sherry Sparks was really part of the growth continuum. And so I know that that's getting out there, but we can definitely make sure, Kim, we can talk offline and definitely make sure if it hasn't been the newly released part of it, we can get that for everybody.
Megan, can you make sure that Kim lets us know about the sessions, the webinars that are being held? We're at ESP LGBTQ here at NEA. We're trying to collect all of that information and stories. We're doing webinars also, but to find out about what's going on in our state affiliates is really, really helpful, because then other state affiliates can say, oh, we can do that too. And so, you know, success. So please share that with.
Yeah, I'll get that to you tomorrow. We'll get that information out. So yeah, this is great. Like I said, we're, you know, you guys have some amazing ideas in the chat box. We're going to keep this going. I don't know next week yet. I'm still kind of thinking about next week's topic. If anyone has an idea, oh, there's a link, Becky, if you want to grab that to the workshop page. But I can have her do some things also.
Thank you.
But yeah, I'm always open for ideas. If I come up with something, it's usually 3 in the morning when I wake up and before I fall back asleep, right? But if anybody has some topics, we're always looking for those. Mental health. Oh, Gail, yes.
I'm just curious if there's any information from what we shared and talked about last week, if you were able to put any of that information out there, and did you get any feedback on it?
So I actually, after I read all the emails, knowing that they were going to have to be in by 5 o'clock tomorrow, the data that you guys gave me and the stories were so raw that he didn't have a clue. So what we're going to do is I'm actually taking all that information and we're going to give it to him as information, so that it didn't go into the survey. And like I said, the survey was, you know, so biased anyways, that any information we gave, I think he would have used it as, well, yeah, we looked at it, but didn't think it was important. So when I talked with, you know, leadership and the next day, we kind of decided, okay, we're going to use this a different way. So we're going to send all that information, or actually we're going to print it out and give it to him. Because I think when you have paper like that, it's really harder to ignore it than in an email. So we're going to get that out and we're going to give it to the State Board of Education. We're going to give it to the commissioner and we're going to give it to the governor, just to say, listen, this is what's going on. I think I have 2 meetings next week for the work group. I have to look and see. I think they're June 2nd and June 4th maybe. And then there's a task force group meeting in there somewhere. So we are going to, we're going to get that out there. And at that point, if they say they didn't get it, well, that's a little ridiculous. So that's how we're going to make sure they get it. Yep. I am seeing something up here, educator mental health issues. That could be a great, that could really be, that could be our topic next year if we want. I know we talk about student mental health issues and those are just as important, don't get me wrong. But I think we need to also talk about the educator mental health issues and what's going to happen as school ends and then, you know, reopening. I know that there's been talk lately and I'm just hearing stories and chitter chatter about how people are feeling going back into their classrooms to pack up things. And I think it's hitting people more than they thought it would. You know, if you go in and you see that the daily agenda was from, you know, May 17th or May 13th or 14th, whatever day you ended, March, excuse me, not May, March. And it just like hits you, you know, I didn't have a chance to do this. I didn't get a chance. So there was no closure this year. And I know the kids are feeling the same way, but the educators, you know, we have to worry about that. If you, as I've said many times, if you're not taking care of yourself, there's no way you're going to be able to take care of them. So that could be a really good topic for next year. For next week, I'll start looking at some information for that. And then again, I think I have to go back up, but I think Jan had said something about the, where'd she go? There was something, but I'm going to relook at all these chats tomorrow and just to see. So Celeste, let me just answer real quick. Districts engaged in impact bargaining regarding working conditions of remote learning. I know conversations are going on. I will pose that to the UniServe directors because they're the ones who actually are doing the work on your behalf and with you. So I will pose that question, Celeste, and that's something we can get back out. Becky, just, I think you know this, but just as a reminder, we bargain all the contracts up here. We have collective bargaining and we have about 230 contracts. So it's interesting because most of them have to be voted on at town meeting. So you actually have to go on that Saturday in March and grovel before the town to get your contract passed. Not all of them, but some. And some actually, because of the pandemic, didn't have their budget meetings yet. So some towns haven't even passed their budget for next year. So that's weighing on the minds of some of the educators, not knowing what the budget's going to look like. And if they already had something agreed to or tentatively agreed to, would it still go through, things like that. Yeah. ACEs, that's going to be huge, Gail. That's going to come up so much next year. And I know we did a lot of work with that last year with our members. We have resilience that we go out and talk about all the time. We have training, ACEs 1 and ACEs 2. So we have the basics, and then we have just the, you know, how do you apply it and how does it really matter in the classroom, things like that. So those are all things, you know, we're really creative at NEA New Hampshire, and we can put those all out at Zoom meetings and things like that. But yeah, I think that's going to be a lot more important than people actually realize. There is a resilience training coming up this summer. I don't know if we've broadcast it yet, but we're going to partner actually with the Principals Association. And it's going to, yeah, it's going to be an amazing, amazing training. Irv's getting everything together, and it's just on resilience. I'm really excited about it. So that information should be coming out soon. I know we've been going back and forth with it. I want to say within a week, maybe. If you're on here, Irv, and you want to correct me on any of that, you're free to speak up. But I thought he was in there. And Barbara, we can chat about that. Actually, I'm going to highlight your chat, and I'll talk to your UniServe director about that, about ESY remotely, not hiring paras. I mean, it's just, you know, they were waiting so long to do ESY guidance and summer school guidance. I don't even know. There's another commissioner call at 12 noon tomorrow, so we'll see what's going on with that. So
can I weigh in on a couple of things? Thanks, Shannon, for bringing up the concept of building that community and the need to do that. We know that before our students can learn, they need to feel safe, and not just safe from the pandemic. I mean, they're going through trauma, they're going through loss, they're grieving, just so many things that they're going through, and we have to figure out how we re-engage them in a way that you have that chance to build community. And you know, thinking about the fact that we ended the year with a group of kids for the most part, you know, and you knew them and knew how to connect with them. And now you're going to start a year where you don't necessarily have that opportunity to do that kind of building. Just depends on how things happen. But a couple of things, Shannon, and others I want to say or ask you really. So Megan just talked about the ACEs training that you've already done. Megan, as Megan knows, we partnered with our state affiliates on, NEA partnered with our state affiliates on putting together a full report around trauma and trauma-informed practices. And what I was thinking about, Shannon, as you and others, as you were raising that issue, I think it really would be a good time, Megan, for us all to look at what we have done in the context of this moment and what we have to face right now. So we don't have to reinvent everything, but we probably should take a look at it and say, you know what, this resource is good and we need to add to that. And so I'm going to take that back to your colleagues and say, let's look at it. Let's look at it. I will say, Megan, that many of our affiliates also are doing work on self-care for educators as well as students. And we can share that more broadly so that if your leaders want to put something together or just want to use that, great. You don't need to create something new, but we do have that we are sharing. And then the last thing I wanted to raise, when you said that you were working with the, did you say you work with the Superintendents Association? Who did you say you work with?
Well, we have a coalition with the superintendents, the school boards. They don't like to admit it, but we do. The special ed administrators.
Oh, okay.
And the principals. And so the principals actually approached us last year. They approached me and asked if we would co-sponsor some sort of workshop this summer with them, and we're doing one on resilience. So yeah, it's us and the principals this year.
Great, great, great. So that's great that you're doing that, regardless of whether they want to admit it. But one of the things that NEA just recently put out was a very shortened guide to collaboration that our local leaders can use. And so I want to make sure that I highlighted that. Hopefully some of you have seen that. And I want to say this now before I forget. all of the things that I've talked about in terms of the resources, that anyone on the call can go to NEA.org/coronavirus and they can get those resources. But if there's something I said that you can't find, just be Pringle at NEA.org. Just send me an email, CC Megan, and we'll get that out to you immediately. We want to make sure that two things. Let me say this. We want to make sure you see the resources, but we also want you to say, you know, Becky, these are good. And did you think about this? And you didn't think about that. And what about that? And that really does not apply to New Hampshire at all. Did you think about this? So, you know, with a critical eye, as I know you can do, you know, say, yay, this is great. And, you know, we could use some more. This is, you know, so I invite you, please.
Yeah, I just put your email there. CC me, we'll get it handled, no problem. So I think unless there's any other huge pressing things, you know, we try to keep these to half an hour, but we have such good conversation. We always go over, and I thank you guys for that. I think we might just plan on them being a little longer because we always have such great speakers, such great questions, and such great information for everyone. So I think that's it for tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you, Becky, for taking the time to talk to New Hampshire. We always enjoy it, and definitely you're going to be invited up soon when this whole thing's over. And hopefully you can come up and see us and see what's going on up here and all the great work everyone's doing. So thank you for everything you're doing at NEA. Thank you for everything you guys are doing in New Hampshire. And like I said, it's almost there. We're almost done. You guys have done such a great job. Just thank you so much for everything you guys are doing. Have a great night.